What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video, I'm going to be going over how to adjust to the new world order shifts. Now, when it comes to adjusting to the new world order shifts, this entails to the whole world, how all countries within the whole world interact with each other, and how all of this is going to pan out in the near future. Right. So we all know that America right now is going through its own problems and its own crisis, going through all these different financial troubles and these financial crises. So in this PowerPoint, purpose of this PowerPoint is supposed to bring awareness to you all, and I'm going to be providing solutions at the end, not only how to adjust to the new world order, but things that you need to be doing in order to help yourself and your loved ones as well. All right. So let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get started. Share my screen real quick. All right, so let's get into it. How to adjust to the new world order shifts. So this is part one, basically entailing how the world works. So we got the big cycle. The world order is now rapidly shifting in ways that have never happened in our lifetimes, but have happened many times before. It's important for us to learn more about these past big cycles and learn how to adjust to them so that we can be better prepared for them in the future. So, the biggest thing affecting most people in most countries through time is the struggle to make, take, and distribute wealth and power, while also struggling with other things such as ideology and religion. The people who have the wealth are the people who own the means of wealth production. So when you think of people like the elites or the capitalists, people that are part of the capitalist system, whatever you want to call them, that's what we're referring to. In order to maintain or increase their wealth, they work with the people who have the political power. They're all one and the same, basically, who are in relations with each other to set and reinforce the rules. So this leads to a very small percentage of the population gaining and controlling large percentages of the total wealth and power. All right. So this is when the imbalance comes in between the wealth distribution. You have the small percentage of the people who contain or have the majority of the wealth, and the people, the common people, the citizens, the least wealthy, are the ones, scrapping and don't have as much as the top 5, 10%. All right. So this leads to a very small percentage of the population gaining and controlling large percentages of the total wealth and power. This hurts those least wealthy and least powerful the hardest, which leads to conflicts slash revolutions slash civil wars. So when these conflicts are over, new world order is created and the cycle begins again. So this basically talks about how the cycle transpires from the beginning to the end. And I'm going to be going more deep in depth into how this cycle transpires in a moment. So we got evolutions and cycles. Evolution is the upward movement toward improvement that occurs because of adaptation and learning. Around it are cycles. Think of it as an upward pointing line, an ascending trajectory of movement, of improvement cycles within it. So you got this line, right? This upward trajectory line. Now, when it comes to our evolution, we are improving, at a great rate. All right. So, we taking baby steps right now. I believe the human population or the Homo sapiens sapiens, we've only been around for maybe about 50,000 years or so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we humans only been around for 50,000 years. So, we're the new kids on the block. So we're taking the baby steps. We're like newborn babies learning how to walk. So when you look at it from the grand scheme of things, we are evolving, we are improving at a drastic rate. But along with that evolution, with that evolutionary process, there's cycles and busts and booms in between this trajectory. So we are on this evolutionary upscale, but then we have these cycles and these problems that we have to go through along our evolutionary journey. So even though these learnings and productivity improvements are evolutionary, they don't cause big shifts in who has the wealth and power. The big shifts come from revolutions and wars, which are primarily driven by cycles, and these cycles are driven by cause/effect relationships. So the formula for success has been a system in which educated people operating civilly with each other, coming up with innovations, receive funding through capital markets, and own the means by which their innovations are turned into the production and allocation of resources, allowing them to be rewarded by profit making. So this is when when you have your entrepreneurs with owning their own business and participating in the capital market cycle. However, over the long run, capitalism has created wealth and opportunity gaps that have led to economic downturns and revolutions and wars that have caused changes in the world orders. Countries with large savings, low debts, and a strong reverse currency can withstand economic collapses better than countries that don't have much savings, have a lot of debt, and don't have strong reserve currencies. So, like they said, like people say, more power, more money equals more power. All right. Human productivity is the most important force in causing the world's total wealth, power, and living standards to rise over time. However, it has risen at different rates for different people based on the quality of people's education, inventiveness, work ethic, and economic systems to turn ideas into output. So many different people escalate, many different people improve, at different times and at different rates. But it's all about, the person's educational level, innovation and inventiveness, work ethic, the economic systems that come to play within a certain country. All these different factors and all these different assets play a part in how country performs, all right, and how strong the country is in terms of wealth and power. So there are 8 determinants of wealth and power. So we got education, competitiveness, how competitive a country is, innovation in technology, how innovative people are when it comes to new ideas and new inventions, economic output within a country, share of world trade, military strength, financial center strength, and reserve currency status. So you got the 3 big cycles you need to look out for. This is the cycle of good and bad finances. For example, the capital market cycle. Got the cycle of internal order and disorder, cooperation leading to fighting over wealth and power, largely caused by wealth and value gaps. And then the third one, you got the cycle of external order and disorder, which is competitiveness of existing powers and fighting for wealth and power. So you got the cycle of good and bad finances when it comes to, a country's financial situation and economics and their all around economy. Then you got the cycle of internal order and disorder. Now this deals with, like I stated, the cooperation within a certain country, which leads to fighting over wealth and power caused by large wealth and value gaps. And then the external order and disorder deals with how each country stacks up with each other and how each country interacts with other countries in terms of existing powers and fighting for wealth and power. So you got the cycles of good and bad finances. For thousands of years, there have always been 3 different types of monetary systems. So you got type 1, which is hard money like gold and silver and things of that nature. You got type 2, which is paper money, claims on hard money, basically. And then you got the type 3, which is fiat money, which is, uh, a paper, the dollar bills that we as Americans use during this time. So throughout history, countries have transitioned across these different types of systems for logical reasons. When a country needs more money and credit than it currently has, whether to deal with debts, wars, natural disasters, or other problems, it naturally moves from type 1 to type 2 to type 3. So whenever there is when the country is going through uh, some sort of debt issues or a natural disaster arises or any other type of problems, then that's when the type 1 moves to type 2 or type 2 to type 3. So that's when you have the government or the central bank printing a whole bunch of money, which causes a whole bunch of inflation and things of that nature. So that it has more flexibility to print money. Okay. And creating too much money and debt depreciates their value. So when you're printing so much money, that depreciates the value of the currency. Okay. Causing people to get out of holding debt and money as a storehold of wealth and move back into hard assets like gold and silver or other currencies, such as digital currency. Now you see people going towards, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all these different types of digital currencies. Since this takes place when there is wealth conflict and sometimes war, there's also typically a desire to get out of the country. All right, so like I said, America's on the decline. Tension and division is rising in the country. Now you have some people who are looking to move out or move out the country. So now you have the cycle of internal order and disorder. So stage one, you have the new order begins and the new leadership consolidates power. So for the US, for example, the last New World Order that took place was right after World War II. And that's when the US started to become this dominant power that it is right now, but steadily on decline as we speak. So, stage two, you got the resource allocation systems and government bureaucracies are built and refined. So, all the allocation systems, all the economy starts to build up, the government is in place to allocate resources better and to strengthen the economy, strengthen the financial systems. And this leads to stage three. So there is peace and prosperity after this, right? You got stage four, great excesses in spending and debt, and the widening of wealth and political gaps. So this is when the so-called elites or the so-called leaders start to create excess in printing money and spending and becoming more greedy. So that's when the wealth gaps start to widen, right? More money for the top percent of people and less money for the majority, right? Then we got stage five, very bad financial conditions and intense conflict. So I believe that America right now currently is within that stage five area or that stage five uh type of type of thing. Then we got stage six, which is civil war / revolutions. Now I don't know if we'll ever get to that point in time. You know, we'll see when the time comes, but we need to be better prepared if that time comes, if those troubled times or those wars and those conflicts start to arise, we need to be better prepared for ourselves in order to embrace what's to come. So then after stage six, that's when the cycle repeats itself. So we go back to stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four, stage five, stage six all over again. So this is a repeating cycle that always happens since the beginning of recorded history. So internal conflict is especially high in the US, which appears to be in the stage five of the cycle, which I mentioned earlier, while China appears to be in stage three of that cycle, peace and prosperity. Now we got the cycle of external order and disorder. So all empires decline and new ones rise to replace them. All right, so this deals with the law of rhythm, right? All civilizations rise and fall. Everything must come up and everything must come down. So when powerful countries have disputes, They don't get their lawyers to plead their cases to judges. Instead, they threaten each other and either reach agreements or fight about it. So there are five major kinds of fights between countries. So you got number one, trade slash economic wars. This deals with conflicts over tariffs, import slash export restrictions. So a country can restrict or eliminate certain imports from other countries, and that cuts off the wealth from that other country, right? It's because no money equals no power, right? Then we got technology wars. This deals with conflicts over which technologies are shared or protected. You've been seeing recently how the US has, banned TikTok for a certain amount of time. Technology, the use of technology to better help us perform certain actions or help us make certain decisions in life. So we got technology wars as well, because the more technological power a country has, the more likely they're going to win the other wars, such as the military, especially the military war. And then we got geopolitical wars. This deals with conflicts over territories and alliances. All right, certain areas and certain geographic locations, a country might have control over. Right, capital wars. This deals with limiting foreign access to capital markets. And then we got military wars. This deals with conflicts that involve actual shooting and the deployment of military forces. So let's get on to part two. Part two deals with how the world has worked over the last 500 years. So the four most important empires are the Dutch, British, American, and the Chinese. These empires held the last three reserve currencies. That's why they're being talked about right now. The US dollar now, the British pound before it, and the Dutch guilder before that. So China is included because it has risen to be the second most powerful empire slash country, and because it was so consistently powerful in most years prior to around 1850. All right, so China has been a dominant force, a dominant empire, dominant country for a while now. All right, so then it had went through its downward spiral, its downward cycle. Now you see China's on the rise. China's on the come up now. All right. So in the pre-1500 period, China was almost always the most powerful. China was dominant for centuries, though it entered a steep decline starting in the 1800s. The Netherlands became the world's reserve currency empire in the 1600s. Then the UK started peaking in the 1800s. The US rose to become the world's superpower over the last 150 years, immediately after World War II, though particularly during after World War II. All right. The US is now in relative decline while China is rising again. So you see within this graph, China has been, a dominant power for a while now. So you see as China started to decline around the 1800s, that's when the US, this line right here, the US started to uh, go up and peak. That's when the US started to increase. That's when the US started to go up in rank, right? And now you see now in modern times, you see right now the US is on its decline. China is on its way up, all right? So we got the US-China relations and wars. All right, so now we get into the US-China uh, problem, the US-China event, whatever you want to call it, placebo. Currently, the two leading powers, China and the US, are at the topic of discussion when it comes to global power and control. As the US was going through its big cycle rises, China was going through its big cycle declines. So as the US was starting to go up, China was declining. Okay. As the US started producing more excesses, which led to weakening in a number of areas, China has made some revolutionary changes, leading to their upswing that they are now currently in. All right, so you see China's on the come up. The US appears to be on the decline while China is on the rise. So, as stated earlier, history has shown that there are five major types of wars. So, we got trade/economic wars, technology wars, geopolitical wars, capital wars, and military wars. So, even though one does not want these wars to transpire and believe in acts of cooperation, because I believe in acts of cooperation, we must be realistic in recognizing that they exist. We have to recognize that these type of wars exist. Okay. It's time for us to think about what is most likely to happen next and how to deal with it well. So, in watching them transpire, we need to observe and try to understand each side's strategic goals. So, it's important for us to, study up on this type of information, study up on these different type of things, so we can better understand and we can be better prepared for what's to come in the future. So, we got American versus Chinese culture. So, this is the difference between the American culture and the Chinese culture and how each country is ran. So Chinese culture is structured from the top down. All right. This means they put the collective interest ahead of individual interests. So when it comes to making certain decisions, when it comes to doing certain things and how they operate, it's based on the collectiveness. They're all about collectiveness. They're all about the collective input. Right? So the government makes all the decisions because they believe that the majority has no idea what's going on. They have no knowledge of what's going on. So they believe they know what's best for the country and what's best for the people. So the decisions are up to the higher ups, the higher rankings of the Chinese government, country as a whole. Now with America, American culture is structured from the bottom up, demanding high levels of personal freedom, favoring individualism, favoring individualism and collectivism. So we as Americans, we take pride in individuality, right? Personal freedom, free speech, all these different things. We if the government makes if the government makes a certain decision and we didn't necessarily don't agree with it, we tend to, voice our thoughts, voice our opinions. We don't listen to everything that the government says. We don't agree with everything that the government says, so we voice our opinion. All right, we may protest, whether it be in public, social media, whatever the case may be. We're all about freedom and we're truth seekers and all these different things. So this doesn't partake to all Chinese or all Americans, by the way. All Americans don't necessarily agree with, democracy or in part of democracy, and the Chinese are the same as well, right? Not all Chinese are part of the collective. I believe some Chinese they're forcing, more of a democracy, right? Instead of, the communist type of system that they are partaking in. All right. So this doesn't partake to all Chinese people or all Americans. So these are some different examples of, different cultural differences. All right. So one example, the response in having to wear masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the Chinese followed instructions from their government and Americans often didn't. All right. So I'm not saying, whether the Americans were right or wrong, whether the Chinese are right or wrong. This is just pointing out the example and how the Chinese individuals operate and how the Americans operate, how the Chinese government or the country as a whole, how they operate totally differently from the American government or from America in general. So that another example, the Chinese government regulating how long a child should spend playing video games, uh, as opposed to the American government, which leaves that up to the individual parents to decide. So another example took place in October of 2019 when the then general manager of the Houston Rockets tweeted an image in support of the Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests. He quickly took down the tweet and said that his views did not represent the team or the NBAs as a whole. The Americans attacked Mori for not standing up for free speech, and the Chinese responded by dropping all televised NBA games, pulling NBA merchandise from online stores, and reportedly demanding the league to fire Mori. So this clash arose because of how important free speech is to Americans and that the league should not be punished because of one individual. So the Chinese believe that Mori needs to be punished and that the group should be held accountable for the actions of the individuals in it. So, like I stated earlier, the Chinese, they operate from the top down. They believe in the collective. So if they believe that one person is at fault or one person is at wrong or one person made a certain mistake or made a certain decision that they didn't agree with, they believe that the whole organization, the whole team should be accountable for that person's action. Right. But the Americans, they don't feel that way. We tend to believe in individuality. So let's say I work for the Snickers company and I voice my opinion on a certain, you know, opinion. I have my own opinion that, oh, Snickers is bad for you. Snickers is poison. So people shouldn't be eating Snickers. People shouldn't be partaking in eating Snickers, right? So, America, they might feel that, that's my opinion. That's my own voice. My opinion or my thought doesn't really coincide with how the corporation or the organization of Snickers feels. You see where I'm going with this? So the Chinese operate at a different level and they operate in a different way as opposed to the Americans. So the main challenge the Chinese and Americans have with each other is failing to understand and empathize with the other's values and ways of doing things, not allowing each other to do what they think is best. To have peaceful coexistence, Americans must understand that the Chinese believe that their values and their approaches to living out these values are best, as much as Americans believe their American values and their ways of living them out are best. The internal wars and challenges in both China and the US are more important and bigger than external wars and challenges. Right. So, you know, when we come to think about certain countries and how countries are ran and how people are running the government, how people are running their citizens, you know, that's why we got to pay attention and be more cautious and be more aware of the media and the news because we can't put our full trust in the news and the media. The news might paint a bad picture towards a certain country or a certain territory, and then we believing in the news wholeheartedly 100%. We tend to believe in the news and we believe that's how the country is or that's how the country treats its citizens and things of that nature. And then we start to paint a bad picture or paint a bad light on a certain territory. All right. And then, you might go to a certain country. You might visit a certain country. You might visit China. You might visit India. You might visit Japan. You might visit France and all these different countries. And, that's not what you have been told by the news uh or the media or social media. Right. You got your hands-on experience. You got to see it with your own eyes and with your own vision, with your own perception. So that's why we gotta, when it comes to the news, when it comes to how the news portrays certain events and people and countries and things of that nature, we have to be aware of these things, and not believe in the media wholeheartedly and do our own research and come up with our own perception, how we view other people, how we view countries, and how we view organizations, things of that nature. So this is the most important war that we need to be aware of. All right. So all these other wars, the technology wars, the geopolitical wars, uh, gender wars, economy wars, all these different wars that have been going on for centuries. This is in my opinion, the most important war that we need to be aware of. And that is the war with ourselves. The enemy is us. All right. We have to look at ourselves, right? So our greatest war is with ourselves because we have control over how strong or weak we are. It's important for all of us within every country of the world to ask ourselves how well, excuse me, how well we are doing individually versus how well we are doing collectively. Remembering the cause/effect relationships between every action and decision we make. This deals with the law of cause and effect. So it's important for us to pay attention to the type of decisions we make. Every cause will have an exact effect. Every cause will have a direct effect. So think about the types of decisions, whether it be minor or major, micro or macro. All right. So pay attention to the types of decisions and actions that you are taking in your life. Okay. And avoiding divisions that lead to declines. Can we remain strong and united, or will we continue to allow division and internal struggles to lead to our decline? All right, so that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Are we willing to stay united? Or are we willing to be or stay divided and lead to our decline? All right, so the war is with ourselves. Like I always say in my spiritual videos, we have the ultimate power to make drastic changes in the world because the God/the universe is within us. So, like I always state this in my spiritual videos. We have the ultimate power within us and inside us to make certain decisions, to make drastic decisions, and to make big changes, not just within our own lives, but within our loved ones as well. All right. So we have the ultimate power. We have the capabilities and the opportunities within ourselves to not only make this world a better place, but for the universe as a whole and for humankind and all living things as well. So we always have to keep that in mind. So this is part three, future solutions. So I'm going to be providing information on how the future might look and the solutions that we can partake in to uh, help us better in these situations. So in order for us to be better prepared for the future, we have to be able to learn from the past. History tends to repeat itself, like that big cycle that I had mentioned that I showed you all earlier. This has been going around for centuries. Within the last 500 years, within recorded history, history tends to repeat itself. All right. So by studying the past, one can determine what's likely to happen. And number two, protect yourself and others you're responsible. So once we're able to, learn how the world works, learn how countries operate, how the world operates, and the things that have been repeating within these cycles. And once we study these and dissect these and come up with solutions and ideas within them, then we're better able to adjust to them, adjust to the things that are coming, and things of that nature. So dealing with the future is all about one, perceiving and adapting to what is happening, even if it can't be anticipated. Right. So we'll never know what transpires. We'll never know exactly 100%. But by being prepared, we can be better able to withstand these things that are coming forth at us. So number two, coming up with probabilities for what might happen. And number three, knowing enough about what might happen to protect oneself and your loved ones against all odds, even if one can't do that perfectly. All right, so we might not be able to anticipate what's going to happen in the future exactly, but like I said, we can be better prepared to make certain decisions for us and our loved ones. So as mentioned before, we are heading toward this evolutionary upward trend. So when you look at that line that I showed y'all earlier, we're in this evolutionary process, right? Everything is, the human evolution, the human species, we are going up at a drastic rate, all right? The human productivity is increasing, levels of education is increasing, innovation in technology, all these different things is increasing, all right? This causes changes over time, generally toward improvement, such as increasing productivity. All right. So within this evolutionary upward trend are cycles we go through. So we go through these different cycles of this evolutionary process, okay, which causes rhythmic ups and downs in the economy and bumps along the way, such as acts of nature. right? That's why we have these, these wildfires and California wildfires, Hurricane Helen, all these different natural disasters, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, all these different things. So this can help us come up with solutions and ideas based on where we are in the cycle. So currently in the US, we are at that stage 5 cycle, which is internal conflict and all these different things and what might come next. So we can't know for sure whether the conflicts in the US will increase or reverse. We'll never know. We do know that the long-term momentum is toward increasing division. We can't deny that the US is in deep debt, its international standing is weakening, and it's experiencing serious conflict. Okay. If the US continues to decline and China continues to rise, the big risk is that when differences exist and there is no mutually agreed upon decision to ease the conflict, there's a good chance that there will be a fight. So, right. So if there is a fight, I don't know if there will be a fight or if there will not be a fight, but we don't want to take any chances. We don't want to wait till the last minute. And then when shit hits the fan, we're not able to, you know, react. All right. When it hits us, we don't know how to react. So we gotta be prepared for these types of moments. So the main conflict between the US and China as of right now is over Taiwan. This seems to be the only cause for a military war within the next upcoming years. So the US currently has control over Taiwan. China likes to have influence over certain, countries, especially the countries that are within its region, right? So China likes to have influence over these countries. And, you know, I don't know if the US will ever go down that rabbit hole, go down that line, go down this military war path just for Taiwan, just for the control of Taiwan. I don't think the US will, have interest in doing that, but we'll see. But the main priority for China is to have control back over Taiwan. So within the next upcoming years or so, the most important things that we need to look out for are the short-term debt slash money slash economy cycle, the internal political cycle, which is the things that, the cycles, the stages that what a country might go through in the conflicts between the US and China. So be on the lookout for, you know, how the US and China relations transpire over the next coming years. So these are the solutions I end up coming up with in order for us to better handle these situations that are coming forth at us. So the first solution I got is always study and gain more knowledge. Right? We need to always be studying, always gaining more knowledge on these type of subjects, and always, bettering ourselves. Right? Because knowledge makes a man or a woman unfit to be a slave. So once you are, always educating yourself, always updating yourself on the latest, information that's coming out, and just gaining more information on these type of topics, then this will eventually lead to more information and more progress when it comes to bettering yourself in these certain situations. Right? Think more future based instead of present based. Now especially the average everyday people, they tend to, think short term. What am I going to be eating the next day? What type of food am I going to be cooking, the next day? Or when am I going to be able to, pay my bills? When is my next paycheck coming? The next vacation I'm about to take. We think such on a short-term basis, whereas these elites, the Chinese, the higher ups, they think on such a astronomical level. They think on such a future-based level. They think light years ahead of us. They think 300 to 500 years from now, maybe even thousands of years, how the world is going to transpire and certain decisions that they make and how the world is going to look within the next 300, 500, maybe even 1,000 years. So they think more future based instead of present based. Now, within this solution, I'm not saying, to always, uh, you know, to always think ahead all the time. And you need to be in the present moment when it comes to certain things. But as far as making certain decisions, not only for you, for your future, and for the future of your kids, your wife, or whoever the case may be, we need to start thinking more future based. We need to start looking into the future, right? Instead of the present moment when it comes to making certain decisions. You see what I'm saying? All right. So the third solution: put delayed gratification ahead of instant gratification, so you'll be better off in the future. So we tend to, in this social media era, we tend to focus on instant gratification instead of delayed gratification. We, you know, binge watching Netflix, binge watching social media videos, and being in the latest gossip, being in, always on our phones, pay attention to the stuff that doesn't really matter. All right, we all want that instant gratification, but we don't want to, you know, put in the work to better ourselves. We always want that quick fix. We always want that quick dopamine hit. So it's important for us to put that instant gratification on the back burner and focus more on that delayed gratification. Reading books, gaining knowledge, meditating, eating right, eating healthy. All these things take work. We don't want to put in the work, but once you're able to see these results pan out in the future by doing these certain things, we will thank us later in the long run. But we don't want to think about that. We don't think far ahead enough like that. We don't think far into the future like that. We always want that instant gratification. Eating junk food. Satisfying our sweet tooth. We don't want to start eating healthy, eating fruits and vegetables, and that'll lead to a better health and a better longevity in the long run. But we don't want to think about those type of things. So put delayed gratification before instant gratification. So we got diversify. Now, when I say diversify, that doesn't mean just diversify your income. You can diversify your own life, diversify certain decisions you're making, diversify, your wealth and your health and your well-being. Just always diversifying. All right, diversifying your income into different assets and also carrying that over to your own life, to your own personal life, whatever that may be. All right, so always diversify yourself. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the final solution: know all the possibilities so you will be prepared to handle it. All right, create a list of, you can create a list of possibilities that might happen in the near future, and then come up with solutions on how to solve these problems or to solve these possibilities, or come up with, you know, different decisions, make certain decisions, and thinking ahead of time to where you're able to be better prepared for the future and what's to come. All right. All right. So for more in-depth information on this subject, check out Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. Now I'll leave the book link in the description below. I always reference my sources and the types of books that I read and that I use in these PowerPoints. So if you want more in-depth knowledge and more depth information on this type of subject, I highly recommend this book right here. Like I said, leave the link in the video description below. So in conclusion, while these war periods usually lead to human suffering, we should never, ever lose sight of the fact that we can navigate them well, and that humanity's power to adapt and quickly get to new and higher levels of well being is much greater than all the bad stuff that can be thrown at us, right? It's all, it doesn't last. The bad things don't last. Always have to remember that the bad stuff will not last. We tend to think so much on the bad, but we don't focus more on the positives. We don't focus more on the good. We as human beings, we have evolved so much, man. Like, think of the past, from all these wars and all these conflicts and slavery and these pandemics and all these different things. And just look at the bigger picture, man. Look how far we as humans, the human race, the human society, Look at how we improved ourselves. Look how, innovative we became. All right, we've been, back in the past, we were riding horse carriages and buggies. Now we sending drones out into space. We coming up with all these different innovations, and we're becoming more wise and more smarter and more, peaceful and loving and happy. We've become more interconnected than we ever been in our entire lives. So we have to think on those terms. We have to think more positively. The human race has improved so much over the years, and we're steadily improving. We're steadily going up that ladder of success. But we're still going through these different cycles, but we're taking these baby steps. We're the new kids on the block. We're the newborn babies on the block. So we're steadily learning and steadily growing. But I believe in the near future, we will, achieve that type of civilization where we're able to thrive and we're able to prosper, right? So think of the positives. Think of more of the positives in life. We become better as human beings. We become better as a society, and we need to stick together. Right? We need to unify. We need to stick together because division. They want us to be in division. They want us to be separated, and that's how they gain control over us. But we need to stay 10 toes down. We need to stay united. We need to love one another, spread peace and love, gaining more knowledge, and to help a brother out and to help a sister out. All right. So there you have it, guys. This is how to adjust to the new world order shifts. Hope you gain some knowledge. Hope you gain some information. Share this video if you can. More people need to know about this type of information. More people need to know about this uh, situation that's going on right now. So thank you guys for watching. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. All right. So till next time. And always remember, all power resides from within. And always keep the faith because God in the universe is always working for you. Take care, guys. God bless.